All right, folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our workshop here, Traders Talk, December 16th, almost at the end of the calendar year. It is crazy how fast this year flew. Great to have Elena joining us, Charlene, Allen, mixing around here in the chat board. Kathleen here, Dennis, Michelle, Margaret, Bell, Sam, Irving, Anna. Got Jeff from before. I don't think I missed too many of us here at all. Got Alex Poe just earlier, Danny Gillis, Brian, Dave. All of us here just joining us inside our live trading room. Great to have you back there. Great to have you back on social media, though, otherwise at Cyber Trading You. Hear my loud-ass keyboard there. But popping up on the lower left, social media stream, social media handle, nonetheless. Hit the follow, hit the subscribe button right down below. Look to join us inside our live trading room afterwards, at least. ACHR, nice move just a moment ago here. It's up 8% today. It's been on a bit of a tear going into the end of last week into today. But though, just a couple of things here to begin. Where did the stock come from? Where did we get in? Where are we going to look to get out? Even before that, I want to show this poll result for all of our members actually in our trading room right now. I was asking them just before I started this workshop, hey, what stock were you most interested in before the market opened up going into the day today? From our morning watch list, if you're a student or member inside our live trading room, well, you're with us there early in pre-market. You're going through the chat board, seeing what Fausto's calling out, what I'm calling out, Rich, and your fellow traders as well. So, of course, on top of that, I'm here to say as well, there's more than just one stock that we're all kind of looking at going into the market open. You don't want to focus on 20, but you can't just focus on only one, right? And I knew that with asking you this question. So, I'm just asking, what stock were you most interested in? Which one had your largest focus throughout the morning? So a lot of us did write back and they said ACHR right here, but notice otherwise, a bit of a mixed bag with good reason. Surprisingly, for a Monday, it was pretty active out there in pre-market. You had the quantum and AI trades moving up. There were others out there too. You had the larger caps like Tesla, which was breaking all-time highs from last week. You had Broadcom here, Avgo, in a little hidden there, but Avgo has been on a tear from last week too. A bunch of us were focused on that as well. So really, we'll have the chance to cover a few of these here in this workshop, Traders Talk. But let's just start with this one here, ACHR. It's the one that most of us wrote back to me on, but it didn't need to be this. You could have been in on the QBTS trade and made your day's pay, if not much more, from the open, right? So we'll start with the ACHR, but we'll cover a few more afterwards here as well. Now, at least the question is why and how, right? Why and how are we taking these trades? It's easy to say, oh, this stock bounced on Friday from 740-ish, ran into the afternoon. It's easy to say, oh, it bounced again this morning. It's easy to say, okay, looking at the daily chart here, it's been on a pretty good trend of late. Well, the more important part is, because if trading was that easy, where we were able to just focus only on hindsight, right? I mean, we wouldn't be here. But that's just where I'll tell you, though, using the principles and strategies that we cover here in Traders Talk in our curriculum each and every week, each and every month, it gives you a better ability to react. So actually, just a moment ago, I took this picture here. I got to probably retake. There we go. Okay, so little tip here. We talk about this also in our classes, just as far as becoming a student and joining us inside our live trading room. This is like all of the chat here today, like the beginning of the chat on the stock ACHR. So what I'm here to show you is that actually as a student in our room, you can click this little settings gear. That was a poorly drawn circle right there. Click that little settings gear yourself, and you could actually type in different keywords. We talk about this in phase one lesson number 1, in fact, but type in ACHR. You see all of the discussion on ACHR throughout the morning. And what this means is that, when you're in our trading room, you want to look at this to see, okay, where are the key levels? Where are we calling out iceberg orders? Where are we calling out opening bell prints and all of that? So this was the first chat that we had here today on the ACHR. I wrote to you here saying at E55, looks like it could be back in play today. Waiting until the market opened, though. I just kind of made that as a broader comment because there wasn't much to it. It was just kind of inching up a little bit here at the time. It very well could have just came crashing back down. But that was the first word of that stock just at 8:55 in the morning. We put it on our morning watch list shortly afterwards, though, going into the open. Brian here saying, one of our students, saying that ACHR and Joby are basically the air taxi stocks and drones they're perhaps affiliated with. I don't know what the F is going on around there in New Jersey. Thank God I'm down here in Florida right now. No, I'm kidding. I'm actually going back up to New York in a couple weeks anyway for the holiday season. But what the hell's going on up there, guys? Jesus. I mean, we got to get more information on what's happening out there. But needless to be said, it does create an opportunity here in the stock market. So that's where we're getting at here at this ACHR. Now, market opened up. I mean, we could talk about the pre-market levels. We could talk about the levels from Friday, because those are definitely relevant to this move here today. It was, it could be, it would be. Just it's to say though, right when the market opened up, this was the only level that I was focused on. ACHR here, the opening print at 859. That's like where you have that big dot, that big ball on book map here. This was right when the market opened up. It was a 1.16 million share print. That's not 116,000 folks. That is over 1 million shares that got filled right when the market opened up. I would like to think that somebody knows something within that print that came out. So again, something that we talk a lot further on in our curriculum. But point being is that at 859, that creates an obvious level, like an obvious level going into the day today. Is it going to act as resistance and then it pulls back and makes lower low? Or is there a chance for this to try and break over this as resistance? And well, with that, let me ask our members here inside our trading room, because I know you know the answer to this one. Hey, when it breaks over this 859 as resistance and it runs off of it, what would we be expecting that 859 resistance to flip into then over time? I want all of us to be right in this one here for me. Sam, Margaret, Gillis, Dan, got a lot of us here already, but come on, all of us should know. Resistance flipping into support. So at the minimum, I'm just using this as a level going into the day today. I could have wrote this for any of the other stocks that were on our list. You had other, drone stocks on there. You have AI, you have quantum, you have like a really active morning watch list here heading into a Monday. So that's what I'm telling you. Again, furthermore, if you were not focused on ACHR heading into the opening bell, if you were more on QBTS, or more on the soon trade, whatever it may be, hey, those could have created great opportunities, and I believe they did, right? Bounces or breakouts, either way. But it's just that, hey, I was focused on ACHR here, and I wrote this at the opening bell here for all of us. So 859 creates a level, and then at 1042, I wrote here as well, pretty much the playbook, looking for a re-break over 859. It's not just for me to tell that to you and for you to press buy, but why are we saying this to begin with? Well, this is a big level. Every trade begins with the entry. Every entry begins with a big level. And my best entries to buy a stock are directly after the stock breaks through a big level on the way up. So I have the level, and not only is it testing it for the first time, I mean, shit, it might be the second, the third, the fourth, whatever it may be. This is a retest and potentially a re-break, meaning where we talk about this every week here and a lot more in our curriculum. You want to make sure the more that this keeps nipping and testing this 859 price, it's more prone to make that pop. So, to expedite the story here, long story short, it ended up trying to pop it a few times, right place, wrong time. And then around 10:42 in the morning, this is where I wrote to you at that point, looking for the re-break, right? This is every chat on ACHR from the day. So, after the market opened, it kind of nosedived and kind of moved on to other stuff. QBTS was kind of our main star of the day anyway up until here. So, at 1042, I wrote to you, I'm looking for the re-break over that 859 opening print. So the more times it's nipping and testing this, it's going to try and lead to that better reaction. So it led to the pop. I jumped in right at this point. I will say I got a little nervous as it shook back down, of course, pulled back a little bit below the level here for a moment. I'll get into this in just a bit, but point being is that this held a higher low, and it did hold over $8.50, $8.50. So I was relying on that to act as like, line in the sand for me. Easy to say afterwards. It moved up pretty nicely off of that area. But look what came in actually a short while after I got in, short while after I took the entry here. I mean, out of nowhere, you have these two giant green balls or dots, and they're both 500,000 shares apiece. They're both green. What do we nickname green as, folks? Right? We nickname it as buying. So all of a sudden, in my opinion here, instantly, we have 1 million shares of buying. That's pretty much at that 862, 863 price. and it ended up breaking back over not just my opening print. I mean, but this is as big, right? It's practically as big, the million shares total here between the two. So it ended up pushing off of it. I felt great. I took a quarter of my position out where I'd normally take a half, and I still have 3/4 left in hopes of this still building higher lows and flipping this 9 level now from resistance into support. Needs to do that obviously in order for me to feel better coming up. But I feel great. I feel great right now. There's not really a clear resistance afterwards. Maybe a little sliver here at 950. Otherwise, though, you got your big order out here at $10. Now, when we look at the long-term chart, when we look at the long-term graph here, I already plotted these lines here just a moment ago. So I have 3 lines I'm working with here for the most part. Let's focus on these 2 here for right now. Basically, the high from basically like a month back, a few weeks ago here, it made this giant run up. It topped off at 984. That was the high back from end of November. So you could say 52-week high, right? 52-week high practically right there. And then otherwise, this is the weekly close for this candle. If I'm not mistaken, that's also the close for November. Yeah, that's the monthly close as well. So long term, this price, 957, long term, that's going to be a key level to work with coming up, going into the end of this calendar year, going into January, etc. So like my game plan on this trade right now, let's have it run up to that like 957. Probably should get some resistance there to begin. And then we'll see if we can make that better push later on today, whether it's underwhelming and pulls back. I might just dump out at that point there. But let me just say, I mean, hey, you have a game plan going into a trade. And if it works out, perfect, right? It was money that I didn't have before that trade started, before I took it. But I mean, listen, we had a game plan on Soon, SOUN, and it ended up moving up really well over time. But back from Friday, right? Friday last week, it just ripped the ceiling off here and kept pushing up. And then even just before that, we had the IONQ, which is actually still pushing here, from Friday into today. So there's plenty of stocks out there that will continue to move up much more than you're thinking it would. You're just trying to be, a responsible trader. You took a good entry and you're not so focused on the goal at hand right away. But the more it pushes up, of course, you become more goal oriented at the end where you're looking to get out. You're looking to take your money. So you have a game plan to sell at a certain price. But listen, if the stock keeps pushing up and up and up and up and up, then so be it. I'll try and look for a new entry over time. Here, if it gets to 957 by today, I'll be happy. If it, pops higher from there without me in it right away, then I'll reassess. I'll say, okay, maybe that resistance level could flip into intraday support. Maybe this is a head fake here and it comes back down. It's like, okay, don't look to get in just yet, especially the more a stock pushes up throughout the day. So just I want to point out to you that even if this ends up pushing up more later on without me in it, A, there could always be new levels for you to take this trade from. And then B, otherwise, there's always other trades out there. So you know what? Listen, if you're not in on this trade with me right now from that 859, 860 level, there's other levels here. And there's other stocks to look at, right? There's other trades out there, especially for this morning, kind of surprising for a Monday. The QBTS here, this was kind of our main focus as a room together here, like in our cyber group room. This was probably up on our screen more than the ACHR. So let's basically rinse and repeat. Why did this make the exact move in which it had made? It's easy to say, oh, it's like quantum, or oh, it's AI, or it's whatever the case may be. But not all of these stocks are moving exactly the same. Soon here moved pretty well from last week. It's a little underwhelming today. Rigetti was a little sleepy at first. Now this thing's now ripping the ceiling off pretty nicely. So RGTI seemingly still going, but they're not all going to move together. They're not all going to move perfectly the same. So that's where at least there's going to be others out there that you could try and focus in on. Just look at direction first. So even from earlier, QBTS going into the 8 o'clock move, this was phenomenal. Popped a little bit. It was trying to push a higher high. It was up big on the percent gainers list there this morning. So this one will at least dig a little further into it, book map, and go further into where the orders were in pre-market at least. But we'll still look at that opening price as well, see how that played into account here for this trade. All right, so here's my book map here for the QBTS. I just want to ask our students this. Dennis, Elena, Jeff, Brian, got Alvin here, got Ron. Actually, got two Rons joining us here today. Got Ron F, and then Ron B, one of our longtime students rejoining us here at CTU. Just taking trial membership here, testing the room out a little bit more. But one of our longtime students was here probably before I was employed by Fausto. So, Ron, great to have you back. I hope that you're having a blessed Monday, my friend. Want to ask all of us at least here, where do we have our big resistance on this trade heading into the market open? Look at this picture from left to right, all the way through. Where do we have our big resistance looking at this heat map? What do we got? Hope I don't spill coffee on you. New threads, new shirt. Last thing I would want is coffee stain. All right, 550, right? A bunch of us saying 550-ish, right? 550 up top, maybe a couple pennies underneath. I mean, maybe a stack of sell orders out there together, right? Right? Yep. To go in a little bit further, right? You're right here. 37,000, 69,000 put together. So obviously over 100 plus thousand shares that are sitting out there on the order book around that 550 price. Now that's currently where resistance is heading into the market open. After that, $6. Now before that though, before 550, where did we have resistance? Where did we have resistance here on this heat map before 550? Before it makes the push up towards there, it was chipping around a certain resistance line. It broke through it. It was chipping around it though. What do we got? Bunch of us saying 520-ish, right? This orangish reddish line, right? Absolutely. That was out there since 7 in the morning. I know a lot of us here are chatting at that point early. So, hey, at this stage, this was 56,000. Pretty big, right? Pretty big at 520. Now, heading into the market open, it's pulling back underneath that price level. It was above it. It was holding it as support. It was trying, but then it pulled back and then, just kind of drooping back down a little bit coming into the market open here. Now, I will say, though, at least, although this is pulling back a little bit, I still focus on where the levels are and where the levels were and the whole thought of buying and selling. Like, hey, the whole reason that this order got filled and broken through here is because we had enough buying pressure to squeeze through it, right? So I'm calling this buying pressure. The more buying pressure that we'll see off this 520 level throughout the day, it's probably more prone to make this pop. It's the same thing like we just said earlier with the ACHR and at 857, the more or 859, the more times it's pressing up against that level, it's more prone to make that breakout. So right here, we had a resistance. It could still easily be a resistance heading into the open. But what happens if that level keeps getting poked at? What happens if that level here keeps getting broken through, right? Market opened up. Ding, ding, ding. We'll go into the opening print as well because it's right here at 5. I think opening print is at 5 here for this trade. We'll get into that in a second. But point being is that, long story short, this keeps nipping and testing this level. Head fake, false breakout here. Right place, wrong time. If you took this trade over 520 right here and you got in at 521, 522 the price, I'd give you a grade A on the entry. Not every loss is because of a bad entry, just so you know, folks. It's just right place, wrong time. This was well within prime time hours here. Maybe it was about 10 minutes since it tested the level, but that's not a lot of time. That's like kind of small. So if you took this entry right here and you had to get stopped out at or below the level by like a few pennies, let's say you went break even or you would like took a 3 cent, 5 cent loss, whatever it might be from this area, and you got in like right over this level here, I'd give you a grade A on the attempt, grade A on the entry, right? Now, I hope that you'd still be watching the trade though, because it does pull back. Maybe there's other trades that take your attention away. Maybe the ACHR, caught your eye. Okay, cool. If that's the case, then fine. But the more that this keeps pressing up against this level, it's eventually going to snap. This popsicle stick is eventually going to break. So this ended up leading to the breakout, popped above it, held perfectly over for a couple minutes. The rest is history, right? Now, at least here, the same thing happened at 550. It kept pressing up against the level. And hey, on the second stab at it, easy peasy. Moved pretty well off that 550 level up to 6, right? So again, there's multiple levels that you could take a trade from. Just don't jump in to jump in. You got to have good conviction with where the levels are, right? I wouldn't have been interested in 520 if we didn't see this big fat red line here early in the morning at 7 o'clock, right? It got broken through. That's awesome. What happens if we can keep seeing more buying pressure from there? Obviously, it was a little tough, heading into the 8 o'clock move. But hey, the more times it keeps pressing up against it, something's going to happen. There's a reason it's pressing up against that still at this point. There's a reason it's not making a lower low and completely falling off. I know it did a little here, but obviously afterwards it pushed back up, higher low, held. Now, the opening print on this trade, I don't have my dots here for this one, I don't think. Whatever. Oh, 20 million. Great. Hi there. Okay. So you see right here 1.7 basically, 1.68, 1.7 million shares got filled right when the market opened up, similar to the ACHR, but this one's right at $5. So we would assume 5 to be a big level anyway. It wasn't really showing as an orange line here, but as a whole number, dollar level, $5 level there as well. A little Abraham Lincoln number right there. So you want to focus on those like more abstract numbers at least. But here at 5, since the opening print is at this price anyway, it just makes that easier for us to say 5's a big level. So you could have even had it from 5 in theory. I would have been safer off 520, I feel, but it ended up dipping under and over from 5. Technically there could have even been an entry off of $5. $5, 520, 550. Now, is it going to keep moving up perfectly? No. The more the time goes by, we're going to eventually hit reversal hour. Does not mean it's going to reverse instantly, but it's going to lose its momentum, right? So I'm thinking that it's going to have a tough time here at 6. It ended up breaking over 6 the first test. Okay, well, I'd expect a false break anyway there, like regardless. So it came back down, right? All right, it came back up though. It's pretty strong, holding higher lows just across the recent minutes. Like, okay, well, if it keeps really pressing up again and stabbing against this level, then there is a case for it, right? And hey, it's to say that it did hold above it really well. Basically, even here as it shook down a bit, it still was looking pretty good as far as building a higher low. Oh, nasty drop, but it still flipped 6 from resistance, eventually into a support to where it pushed off of it one more time afterwards. So can you keep expecting that? Can you keep expecting level after level after level after level after level? Well, is it our first rodeo with this stock? Is this our first day trading QBTS? No, this is like our second week in a row trading the stock. This was a dollar stock back, in the beginning of November. Even from like a week or two ago, it was at 350. So from this point, even it's up nearly 100%. From the beginning of November, it's up, 700% roughly, loosely speaking. So eventually, every roller coaster has a top. If you feel more skittish trying to day trade this stock because of how much it's moved up of recent, I don't blame you. I don't blame you, because look what happened to Soon here, right? Did it pop on this day from Friday? Yeah. But even these days here, just very choppy, very shaky, long up wicks, long down wicks as well. So, that's just normal. That's what to expect normally after a stock blows the roof off of one level here. So even IONQ, this was phenomenal here as far as a trend off the lows. But the more it pushes up, the more you become like, is it really worth it? Is it going to make that better push? If it's during prime time hours, if it's from 9:30 to 10:30 and the stock isn't already up a lot percentage wise intraday, there's a good chance, right? But factor in other things like time and range. And, hey, there are plenty of trades that I'm not as confident on, right? And I don't call it out to you because I'm personally not confident. Why would I think that you would be? That's just where I say here, even for stocks that you're not as confident on, that's okay. Just come back to the chat board, come back to the trading room, see what Rich is calling out, see what I'm calling out, of course, Fausto above all, anyone. But, there's always going to be another stock and a stock that's not up, day over day over day over day, that hasn't already ran as well. It's just that right now, heading into the end of this calendar year, we've seen so many sectors take off, right? That obviously Bitcoin, I wouldn't talk, I can't go one workshop without talking about Bitcoin. No, but Bitcoin, AI, nuclear, now the drone stuff happening. Some people are saying it's involving AI and nuclear with these drones. That's a whole other thing. I'm not going to put my tinfoil hat on here for you, but it's just to say there's plenty of other sectors as well that have been exploding. And there's plenty of stocks within each sector that are taking off every day. So it pays to be a member inside our live trading room because on certain plays where you're not as confident, there's always one that's moving a little bit better. So yeah, QBTS was a great move from just earlier. There's still a chance for this to try and squeeze up a little bit more. Let me just take a look at the long-term graph here. I would say this area here should be initially resistance because on the weekly graph, at least, you have a couple of these long down wicks that it was bottoming out at first. It broke under it and then it was chipping around. But I like the fact that you have these like three long down wicks here. Loosely speaking, it's around like 740-ish, 750 as support. So it smashed below it. This was all the way back in October of 22. It should be resistance initially. There really, well, I guess I will say this. So there really hasn't been as much historical resistance to work with, especially since it broke over this area. But otherwise, even if you're focused on like that to flip into resistance, okay, it was back from the end of last week. But obviously today, different story. And today, it blew the roof off of this area here. So this might become support. And then from here, we might get the test of this now as your next resistance line, this area. That's all. So you always want to focus on bookmap first. You always want to focus on where the volume is first. It's what I said previously on ACHR. I felt confident in the 1 million shares that got filled here at this, where was it? Right here. The 1 million shares that got filled here at 860, right? Or 862, 863 it was. That's big money to me. I'm going to have more confidence in what I deem as big money above all else. And then from that point, hey, it obviously is responsible for you to look back on the historical chart. We have classes in the phase 1 and 2 course that cover all of this, by the way. But it's just to mention, you want to go back and see when was the last time this was trading around this area here, right? And then plot your levels, accordingly from that point. From Ron asking, where do I get the CTU bookmap indicator? It says, so Ron, let me ask you, which platform are you currently trading on right now? It's been a little while since you've been with us, but otherwise my kryptonite as an instructor is it's like what I have for breakfast each morning. I kind of forget from each student, unfortunately. So you're on TradeStation still? Okay, cool. Stay with TradeStation still, right? I use TradeStation. I just mentioned because anyone on Thinkorswim, TOS, they could actually get Bookmap. It's called Bookmap, and it's actually direct through Thinkorswim. They have their own like version of it, and we teach that as well in our classes. It's like $40 a month. That's your best bet. But otherwise, though, you can go pretty much right to bookmap.com and get this main version. It's a little more expensive, mind you. I like to mention that as well. But I will say if you email Fausto, typing his email address there to Ron inside our live trading room chat, if you email him right there, he'll send you over like a promotional discount that we have through Bookmap for you. Get this. But otherwise, though, yeah, basically, since you were last with us, we partnered with this company, Bookmap, and this basically paints the orders that are out here on the order book. And I have a full class in phase 1 that teaches this basically and how we look to apply it towards our trading. So I had mentioned just a little earlier, we kind of renovated our curriculum a couple years back, and heading into 2025, there's not going to be really many changes to the 2025 curriculum, but really just implementing Bookmap even further. From Farzad, do you know if Interactive Bookmap Brokers has the Bookmap as well? They don't have it as if click a button here turns everything into Bookmap. TradeStation doesn't have that either, by the way, but Thinkorswim is the only platform broker where if there's literally a button there that says Bookmap, you click it and everything kind of converts to the Bookmap settings there. But again, as a gold student, I can cover that with you a lot further in our coaching program. A lot of our new gold students that join us and roll with us, each week, a lot of them, at least, not all of them, a lot of them are set up on Thinkorswim. And I'll talk to you a lot further about that in our program there. All right. So we covered ACHR. This is still holding over 9 pretty well. I'd rather see it push off of 9 here sooner than later. Hey, the more times it keeps pressing up against this popsicle stick going down, it's more prone to snap it. So, at least it's holding nice, but let's get the reaction soon. Let's get that better pop sooner than later here on this trade. All right. So I did have one question that came in through email. Just normally I'll get some private chats here and there. And I had an email that came in from one of our new members, Jeff, and he was asking basically, just looking to acclimate himself with our trading room more and our curriculum. You heard me discuss this a couple of times in the past, but he wanted to know like who were the best people to look towards in terms of just trading, the chat board, who to go to, who to study from, basically, reading the posts. It's a great question to ask. And basically, I can answer this a lot further in detail in one of these coaching sessions. Why? Well, honestly, I don't want to say names and not say certain names and to have those names that weren't said get upset. I don't want anyone to take things personal, right? So I definitely have names that I could tell someone right away, oh, follow this person, follow that. What I will just say is this: keep your eyes wide open in our chat board, not just for what Fausto posts or what I post or what Rich posts. Again, in the trading chat board here, you could actually use the search tab up top to like look up different keywords and phrases. So you could like type in a stock. You can type in iceberg right here, right? Click the little settings gear, type in like iceberg. You'll find out like who's calling out what, right? So it's not just like about posting profits, like, oh, this person's, because like quite literally, I've seen it on a rarity, but just think about it. We're all human beings. We're all people. You don't know who's typing what in the trading room and if it's real or not, right? So that's where I'll tell you at least, follow what is being posted, not just with profits, like, oh, I made this much. Focus on like the thoughts that are being mentioned in the chat. Like, see what traders are focused on with their trades and their strategy. If they're providing more in-depth explanation, they don't need to. So if they are providing that in-depth explanation for what they are doing, it means that they're going the extra step. And it means like they're probably making money. It means like I'd probably want to follow them, right? For anyone that's like constantly typing in iceberg orders out there, that's someone that is very, alert with what to look out for. So even if they're not making the big bucks, they're clearly focused on the right thing. And that's someone I want to look at as a trader. So that basically is my answer to you here. It's not all about like, I made like 1,000, because you've never met me. I've never met you. I've met a bunch of us, honestly, at our trader summit, but it's just to say, Ron hasn't met John. John hasn't met Brian. Brian hasn't met, Piyush hasn't met Patrick, just I'm shouting out names. It's just to say, the more that you're watching the trading room chat, you'll see who's who. That's pretty much it, right? Because for anyone that provides a much further in-depth explanation like icebergs and prints and historical, they don't need to. So if they really are going above and beyond, like that's something I definitely 100% want to focus in on. And then otherwise, obviously, like on a coaching session, I could probably slip to you more direct names. I just don't want to get anyone upset if I don't mention them. We're all great traders, but definitely there's a few people here that I would look towards as far as like, looking for entries, looking for levels and icebergs. But primarily, that's where I say, hey, focus mainly above all. And I mean this because it's our jobs. It's like literally our roles here at CTU. Focus on Fausto, myself, and Rich. Focus on what we are directly calling out. Not just look at this stock, look at that stock, but focus on the prints. Focus on the iceberg orders out there, right? Like, why was I hyper focused on 859 level this morning, right? How did it work out? The more that we're focused here, like focus on that 957 level, like the more that we're focused on the levels, to me, I'm going to find more confidence in what I'm looking at and with what I'm doing heading into the next day, heading into the next week, the next month, whatever it may be. All right. So let me just go through anything else here before we finish up. It's just about 12:40. Maybe we'll go through like one or two more trades at least. Obviously, some Bitcoin discussion heading into the day. Bitcoin right now currently is at like 107. My stance doesn't change. It hasn't changed. Not going to change. It's just a matter of just waiting it out. This is going to be a long cycle. I said that months back, and here we are just at the end of this calendar year. I say that because I think that the cycle is going to top at the end of the next calendar year, at the end of 2025. We're going to have a lot more ups than downs, but we're going to have downs, right? For anyone that's like, into Bitcoin, it's their first real go around with it, then you got to realize that. Now, with that said, if you're not in from a lower price already, then you're unfortunately in a position where you're going to need to try and trade it more than just try and hold on, right? Because Again, we've been screaming it from like August, September time, even before that, beginning of this calendar year, even. But once we popped resistance, it's tougher to buy and just hold on and wait it out, unless if you have an investor mindset on. If you're just really just looking to hold on, that money you don't need for months on end, you're just going to put it into and that's it. Enjoy the ride, my friend. You're going to like it. But if you're more cautious about taking a trade because it's already moved up so much, you're going to need to, hone in on where those big iceberg levels are. And going back to like IBIT, you could probably do the same thing here, right? I mean, I know that this ended up, gapping up overnight. Pre-market, it was looking pretty interesting. It ended up making a nice trend prior to the opening bell and then obviously after. But even on this, where were like the key levels here on IBIT? I don't even think I have this open. Oh, I do. Okay, cool. Okay, I don't have the heat map open. That makes it even better for us to go over as a collective. I like this. Okay, so this is going to be my first time kind of looking at this heat map here. I had it turned off. Had it turned off for a reason, folks. Pretty ugly. Pretty ugly, right? Where do we have any sort of horizontal line? Where do we have any sort of horizontal line going from left to right on this screen? Brian says Michael Saylor just bought more again today. I like that. Nice. And he said he was going to, so I'm happy he's a man of his word. You could actually go to this website, Brian, sailortracker.com, and you can look at all of his purchases. And what do you know? Yeah, today. Right here. But another 1.5 billion. Nice. All right. So where do we have any sort of line here going across this page, folks? What do we got? I know it's tough to see. It's not the easiest one on the eyes to look at. Danny says 59.30. Gillis says 59.90. What do we got? What are we agreeing with here, folks? Got 59.90. Margaret says. Well, if you look from left to right, there is at least, it's not a beet red or orange line like we want, but it's that yellowish right here. It's about 19 to 20,000 shares that are out here at 59.89. And granted, when you look on the COB column just right here, that's what paints the whole heat map. You could see there's about 11, 12,000 here at 60 for the most part, right? So I will say it's more so this 59.89. That's where you have your larger sell order out there. Market opens up and this instantly goes. But it's just to mention that between 59.89 right here, 59.90, and then the impending resistance here at $60, which again, there wasn't as big of an order out there at first, but you assume decade level numbers like 60, 50, 40, 70 up top once we get there. Those will be significant prices irregardless. So it's just to say the combination of these two prices together created a resistance. It broke over resistance. For Sam, for Ron, for Margaret, Brian, Gillis, Danny, I'm going to be annoying here and ask you to answer this one more time for me. When a stock breaks over resistance and it runs, I'd like to think that initially resistance would create what? I want all of us to answer. All of us to answer here, in fact. Wiz and Ron and Alex Poe and a lot of us here otherwise, right? Support. It's my Jeopardy music, if you haven't noticed. But nonetheless, you're correct. And this is correct. Because resistance flips into support, obviously perfect here. Couldn't have been any better, quite frankly. And it makes that next leg up, right? So it is as easy as can be actually using those iceberg orders here for, even an ETF like IBIT, right? I mean, this obviously goes with Bitcoin, but this is a little different because this is as close to a single stock ETF as you can get for Bitcoin with how much Bitcoin BlackRock has bought over the last 6 months or so. So, it's just I have strong confidence in those levels playing out. But yeah, it did perfectly here. Resistance flip. If you missed out on the breakout here, to which, quite frankly, I wouldn't be as bullish immediately. It looks like it goes pretty fast, though. It makes a convincing breakout where maybe I'd expect a little bit more turbulence at first. All right, well, I flipped my mindset just as easily as you answer that question for me. I mean, like that is exactly how fast I flip my mindset. This breaks over resistance and runs fast. It's like, okay, let's look for resistance to become support. And then from there, as easy as could be, it did. Now, again, it's like obviously going to keep going up over time, more long term than a day trade. This was a nice little day trade from here. I'm not expecting IBIT to gain more steam going into the next hour and a half, 2 hours. More of an overnight thing, more of a pre-market thing tomorrow morning into the next day. But perhaps we'll see history repeat around the 61-ish area. Probably not as big of a level at 61 as there was at 60. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, maybe I got some egg in my face here. Yeah. Oh, I was wrong. Okay. A little egg in my face here. I mean, 60 was larger at first, 75K to 65K, but 61 got larger over time. Now, 116,000 shares that were out there at one point, they dropped off a little bit, then it broke over it. All right. Well, the more times it presses up against it, you know what? I like that. So really, perhaps there is a case to see like a little bit more room on the IBIT. So long as 61 here basically holds as support, or namely, at least we continue to see higher lows. As long as we get higher lows, there's still technically a case for like one more last push. But more often than not, you're not going to get as much steam as you had here. You're not going to get as much momentum as you would from like earlier this morning. That's all. All right, ACHR, just getting back to this. Like we had said, popsicle stick kind of ended up just breaking a little bit on the way down here. It did come into this peak and then pushed up back up a little bit. If this is going to be more bearish, A, 9 should be a resistance. But then B, otherwise, it should get a stronger, more ugly shakedown. The fact it didn't, I like. So it's under 9 here a little bit, but I feel like in due time, it's going to sling back over it. I think there's a case to see a little bit more on this ACHR here before the end of the day. All right. But I watch for confirmation. I would also wait for the personal. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lot of what we talk about in our classes, Ron. All right. So I'll tell you what, folks, if you have any last questions here, let me know right now. We're going to wrap up your Traders Talk just in a couple minutes. Try and go until there's no questions left or any other trades for me to cover. But if there's any other stocks you'd want me to cover here or take a look at, just let me know. But I think that there's a lot more room left on this ACHR. I'm still in it from that 860. QUBT from Brian. Yeah, it's looking a lot better now as far as recency goes. QBTS kind of flat here for the time being. Still technically holding a higher low. Maybe there's a chance for this to go as well. But QUBT, I mean, it says it directly in the company name, quantum computing. AI, quantum computing, any stock within those sectors has been getting a pretty good push of lately. And this company's name is literally quantum computing. Doesn't get any better than that. So yeah, this is making a pretty good push now. Look what happened at $9 though, Brian. It ended up kind of generally speaking, holding under 9. Didn't test it here, but it did test it here at first. I'd be more like skittish initially. All right, it moved off of it though. Moved off of it by like 30 cents. All right, resistance did flip into support. It had a little shake, but it's my famed under and over move, right? Just like you always know, under and over hereafter. Came back down. It actually went under and over this as support. Perfect afterwards. Now from that point though, like $10. Again, first test here, I'd be skittish on. I would not be as jumpy to take this right away. And the more times it keeps pressing up against it, there is a higher likelihood that it will. So it's just that, hey, popped a little bit here. Right on the shakedown, it made the same exact move at 10 here as it made at 9 here. Right? Funny how history repeats itself there, right? From Alan, he's asking, Josh, what are your most interesting stocks for swing trades that were on the watch list from today? Ooh, really good question. So let's do a quick run through then. Let me just get this here, Alan. One moment. So we're going to run through this here watch list. This was the morning watch list, and it's not just the day trading list. It's also swing trading at times as well. And if any of these are holding well throughout the mid to late morning, early afternoon, there's a chance for them to become a good swing trade. But Let's go through a few of these, or if not all of these, and we'll kind of just give you a quick opinion here, Alan, more of like a lightning round here. So this is largely going to depend at first on how the long-term charts look, the daily chart first, like daily, weekly, etc. So any of the quantums are obviously really the hot hand of late. Like this stock went from 2 up to near 7 here coming up in just the last couple of weeks. So to me, I think that this has gone up so much as a swing trade already, especially with today's breakout. I wouldn't be as jumpy to try and take it right now and hold. I would wait for this to either pull back or wait for a new level to build over time. And I say that not just because of this recent pop here. It was consolidating here for a few days prior, so that could have been an opportunity. So I guess that largely, makes up my opinion here. But let's also factor in how much the stock has moved up, like I'd said, from the beginning of November, even when it was $1.30 stock, right? So the same to be said on RGTI, Rigetti, right? So from $1 up to near 9, right? Even more. But guess what? Before today's pop, there were a few days where it was shaking around, it was consolidating. So you're asking me this question now, and I'm giving you this answer now only because of the recent pop. If this question was asked on Friday, I would say, okay, well, it's consolidated here for it's shooking around a little bit for a couple of days. I mean, consolidation, you can call it consolidation, but damn, these bars are pretty big. So it's just to say it's moving within a range at this point. So you want to focus either on the break of that range or to see if you can get a nice pullback down towards the bottom of the range. That's mainly what you'd be focused on when a stock is more shaking sideways or consolidating, whatever you want to call it as. Let's keep going here. RCAT. Okay, it's up today, but it did have a good run from end of last month into basically the beginning of December. Then it pulled back. So this might have a little area for us to base an entry off of. I'm just very loosely, just kind of plotting a couple of lines here. That's all. Based out around $8 here, topped off previously, generally speaking, around like 10-ish. Had a pop and then drop back below it. Today, another pop and drop. So it's like still within this freaking range. It's tough to like gather an entry within this range right now. If there is a clear level on Bookmap, that can give you some interest. Otherwise, wait for this range to get broken over and flipped into support. Or if this pulls back down here again, then that would be kind of an example of what I'm looking for. One or the other. Goes back to shit. This just popped right now. Moved up while I was doing Traders Talk. Shit. Okay. All right. Let's see if this could now work out for me at least here. Okay. So I missed out on this little entry here, but it goes to what I'd said earlier. ONDS was a stock that we had on our morning watch list. This was as a day trade here to begin. And I was saying to you directly in the chat earlier, I was saying ONDS, either it's going to go to 130 for the bounce, or I'll take it over 157 for a breakout, nothing in between. Like that is quite frankly what I'm referring to here. This was meant as a day trade call out, mind you, but that same thought process is what I would look for here as a swing trade when you're looking at the long-term graph, right? So for like ONDS, okay. Before this becomes like a really, really good swing trade, I will say it did have like a little level, not like too clean, but 1, 2, 3 pop and drop, and then this here 4 pretty much right around 162. Little resistance there. If it can press up against that, keep nipping that, or flip that into support, there's a chance for this to try and make a much more rapid higher high, because it's like making higher lows still from like the beginning of 23. So there still really hasn't been a clear higher high yet. And even if it does flip this into a support, that's not a higher high yet, right? But like that's at least a level that you could look at least to try and see a swing trade develop from. Now, for me, I was looking at this from 157 because that was where we had the opening bell print this morning. Getting back to the opening bell print. This was 119,000 shares that came in right at the open at 157. Not only that, but I believe as well, if I'm not mistaken here, on Bookmap, if I'm not mistaken, check. You had some good volume. It wasn't like a sharp, it was okay. It like right around 159, 158. Some good volume that was traded around this area to begin. So it stood out a little bit there throughout pre-market hours, like on my CVP regular right there, CVP right here. So I was looking at that anyway as a level. So I was trying to get the push off of this just before. I'm flapping my gums here a little too much because I just missed my own entry here. And I didn't have a stop order to get me in on the trade. So that's where I messed up a little bit. Well, there's plenty of time to try and get this entry still. There's still a chance for this 157 to flip into a rightful support level. I mean, it's only a few pennies off from it. This is one of those drone stocks that were moving early in pre-market today. I saw some chatter, a lot of chatter, quite frankly, on social media about this stock. Quick shout out to the fine friends of ours over at Benzinga Pro, Ryan Faluna on Twitter. Actually, I saw him talk a lot about this stock, and I saw it up in pre-market a bit. I said, all right, let's start taking it a little bit more seriously, I reckon. So that's where I found out about this trade. We'll see if this could build over 157 heading into this afternoon and get the higher high afterwards. All right. So let me know, Alan, if you have a follow-up in relation to what you had asked just before. I tried to give you as best of an answer there as I could. So let me know if you have any other follow-ups in relation to that. Or on social media at CyberTradingU on the lower left right there. Look to hit the follow or subscribe button down below. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever they call it nowadays, LinkedIn, wherever you may be residing on social at CyberTradingU. But on the upper left with your phone, with your camera, just scan that QR code actually with your phone or camera. It will take you right to a landing page. Just take our trial for a week-long membership inside our live trading room. Join Alan, Brian, Ron, Gillis, Chuck, John, Kathleen, Leda, Philip, and all of our students there right now. And, obviously we are here every week, but to learn as much as you can, you got to be inside our trading room. And not only that, you got to be a student of ours and going through our classes each and every month. So even next week, as a quick little housekeeping note before we jump off, for all of our students at least, we're actually doing the phase 1 course next week. Christmas Eve is a half day in the market. So I find that to be a pretty good day to at least do part of those classes. You don't need to join us live. You never need to be in every live class, but at least so we'll be conducting phase 1 next week on, I believe, Monday and Tuesday. And then at that point, if you're not able to attend, you could always catch the recording of that right on your student dashboard, right on our website. All right. But otherwise, folks, hey, our next audio broadcast will be right here live inside our trading room at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see what's working here heading into the market close. There we go. A little pop back up here on my ACHR right now. Who is still in this trade? Did anyone jump out yet? I know a bunch of us were in it just before we started this workshop. Brian asking, when is the Fed meeting? Wednesday? Yeah, I believe so. I believe Fed meeting on Wednesday, this Wednesday. Is anyone still in on this ACHR trade right now? I'm just interested. There's perhaps a chance to try and jump in off of 9 if you have not been in yet. But the thing about that is that we got to see $9 now hold as support. That's the kicker. If it's just going to pull back below 9, it's probably going to be game over, I'd say. But it's back over it. We trust our whole number levels. I think that there is a very fair shot for this to hold over 9 going forward and for this to pop more towards that 957 price. We said 957. All right. All right. Well, folks, hey, we'll be back here live, at least inside our trading room, either way at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and we'll go from there. I'll talk to everybody soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.